Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing the reading wrap-up featuring 2 books from the Bloody Beach Readathon. So I read quite a few books this month, but unfortunately I can't share them all with you, mainly because Steve just called me a book tease. Alright, he's not wrong. But I'm reading those for a series I'm hoping to launch soon. And my sister and I went on a girls' weekend, and like most girls' weekend, I ended up in jail. You look badass. We toured an old jail. I didn't really end up in jail. So the first one I wanted to share was 50 Poems by Emily Dickinson, and this one I actually listened to on Audible. This is what the cover looks like. And I was a little skeptical. I've never listened to poetry, but I actually liked this one. It had peaceful music going in the background, and it had different narrators, which I liked. But I did want to read you one of my favorites of hers. This is from the Hallmark edition, Judge Tenderly of Me, that I got off eBay. This has some beautiful pictures in it. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see. For love of her, sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. That's one of my favorites. But she has such a, she can write about anything. You just feel, she seems like she just has such a gentle soul. And she's a really good to start out with. If you're thinking about getting into poetry, I would recommend starting with her. So the next one is Offline by Keelan Patrick Burke. And this is the same author that wrote Sour Candy, which was really good. This is a short story, and this is told through social media, but it's done right. This is about a girl who befriends a boy. Her name was Mandy, and she befriends Josh. It's like Facebook messaging, and you just see you get to read the conversation, and the yellow alerts are going off, like, girl. But you don't know what's gonna happen. I was only halfway right. And it's a short story. I finished it in no more than like 15 minutes. But you think you know what's gonna happen, but you may not. So for a short story, and like I said, this is when it's done right, because I kind of feel like when you're using social media and books, like the atmosphere kind of needs to be taken away for me personally, because I'm big on the atmosphere. But with this one, like at the beginning of the story, it's like, hey, this is a screenshot sent to blah, blah, blah police department of, and you don't know what happened, who got hurt. All you know is something bad must have happened if the police are involved. So you're reading the conversation knowing something bad's gonna happen. And you kind of get the triggers. But because all I need to do is read that conversation, like I don't need to be in a setting anywhere, the atmosphere doesn't really matter. So that's what I think improved this. So because I like the first one so much, I actually binged and downloaded In the Flesh Offline Part 2 by Keelan Patrick Burke. And again, this is a short story. It's a social media format. And this is about Kelly and Aaron, and they actually have a good relationship. It starts, you know, it's just you reading their Facebook messaging. But the problem is her mother is very religious. And that's all I'm going to say. Like the first one, I got it halfway right, but this one, I did not see that coming. So I highly recommend those two. All right, so following my Keelan Patrick Burke phase, or binge, I should say, I read The Tent after that. It was about a man named Mike, his wife Emma, and son Cody. Their marriage is on the rocks, so he takes them to the wilderness to kind of go camping and help rekindle things, hopefully. But bad things happen. There's a storm, they lose their tent, and they get lost. And I can't really say too much. It's only like 50 pages on this, so a lot happens in that 50 pages, so I don't want to give away too much. But I don't know what's weirder, the story or the fact that after reading this, it makes me want to go camping. And if you've read this, you will realize why that is weird. But yeah, I want like old-fashioned camping, you know, with a tent and all that. Like this was well-paced. Like I said, I was highly impressed. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm actually not one of those booktubers that hands out 5 stars. The 5th star to me means that it was memorable. Like there was something that's usually, it's like the X factor. That 5th star for me. This I gave 5 stars because I'm pretty sure, like I kind of wish I would have done one of those reading vlogs that some booktubers do. If I could have seen my face when I was reading it, I'm sure it was hilarious. It is very rare that my face is, this is probably on one of the parts. Like my jaw didn't just drop. It kind of, I think, just slowly started dropping because I was like, am I reading what I just think I just read? Did that really just happen? So I absolutely loved it. So if you like horror, suspense, thriller with a touch of a Lovecraftian kind of feel, then you need to read. All right, and then up next we have Vampire Child by Ruby Jean Jensen. And this is one about Babette. She is a young girl, and but her baby brother was found like dead in the crib, his blood drained, and she doesn't quite understand after that. Her mother wants her brother to basically stay away from them. And she takes Babette and leaves, and without telling the boy Patty where they went. And she loved Patty. She loves them. And Patty eventually finds them, and something bad happens. The mother attacks Patty, and of course she gets taken away, the mom does, into police custody for attacking her son. And Babette is still confused at this point, and she gets taken into foster care, and the boy gets taken to a boys' farm. Bad things, of course, start happening at the farm. So that's kind of the premise of the whole story kind of thing, and I liked this. I just didn't love it. I think it's because I'm a little picky with my vampire stories. You know how authors always have this like different way of how someone becomes a vampire, and like you have to be bitten 3 times, or they have to bite you and then you have to drink their blood afterward, but it's only once. And then some it's like immediately you become a vampire like the next day, or you know, there's just all these ways. And I don't want to spoil it, but I didn't really love her version of the boy being a vampire. It was more like a possession, and it took too long. I'm like, if you were becoming one, wouldn't it? I don't know, I just feel like it would be quicker. Anyways, I don't want to spoil it too much, but and on top of that, like I actually cared more about what happened to another boy at the boys' farm than any of the main characters. There's a boy named Marsh who his parents did something so bad to him that he is left with a mental handicap, and he right away knows that something's wrong with Patty, and he kind of wants to stay away from him, and he's actually keeping an eye on him because he doesn't trust him. So I was worried, like, you're thinking, is he going to get blamed for all this because they're thinking it's the boy with the mental handicap that is hurting things, people, animals. So that's kind of what kept me going. But yeah, I like this. I didn't love it, but if you like it. Then up next we have Night Books by J.A. White. And this is a middle grade story about Alex, who we would all appreciate. He is a horror fan ever since he saw Night of the Living Dead. And he also is a writer. So he likes to write horror stories, which he calls his night books. But of course he gets picked on about it. So he's actually he lives in an apartment complex, so he's going to destroy his night books. But on the way there, he gets lured in by a witch who takes him prisoner. And ironically, in order to keep something bad from happening to him, very, very bad, he has to read stories to her from his night books because that's what she wants him to do. So very good premise, and I was drawn in by that, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's kind of like a twisted Hansel and Gretel kind of tale, if you like story retellings, with almost a touch of Harry Potter. And in there with him, there is a cat, then Tasha's the witch, and then there is another child who is being held prisoner. So this is a really good story involving friendship and loyalty. You know, it's really, really cute. And it's creepily weird, and I really enjoyed it. It's good, got a good pace. The only thing I will say is I don't have any youngins, but depending on how old your child is, maybe read it first before letting them read it. And it's not the story, it's actually his stories. His stories within the stories. Like he writes like a child, but it's his content. His stories are actually a little, I don't want to say twisted, but I can't really think of a better word. But Alex's horror stories kind of have not so happy endings. Like I'm like, wow, this kid is kind of dark. I mean, there's no swearing or anything like that in it, but it's just depending on your child, the circumstances, you may not want them to read this just yet, depending on their age. All right, then up next we have I Call Upon Thee by Anya Auburn, which is one of the books from the Bloody Beach Readathon. This is about a girl named Maggie. She's had a lot of family tragedy happen. She's away at college. She has 2 sisters, Bryn, who's kind of a goth. And then her other sister, Arlen, I think I'm saying that right, who is more of a perfect, pretty, popular girl. She stayed in Savannah, got married, had kids. And then family tragedy strikes again, and Maggie has to leave college and go home. So that's pretty much the premise, and Maggie thinks a lot of the family tragedy is her fault because she inadvertently, because of a Ouija board, released a dark presence into the house. Kind of because of a Ouija board, but I won't spoil anything. Anyways, like, at the beginning of the book, it's really more about what happened when she was a child. You kind of are getting bits and pieces of that, like in the aftermath of what happened. And then the ending, then you get like a bam ending. So if you like that kind of thing, and you also have to figure out for yourself, you know, kind of at the beginning and the middle of the book, is this all in Maggie's head or is something really going on? And that's kind of a big thing of the story. It's one of those. So if you like that kind of thing, I highly recommend it. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, but that's because I'm not used to reading books where at the beginning it's really a lot of family drama. And I needed a little bit more creepiness for me personally, but the ending was worth it. The ending was really good, and I really did like her writing. Like this story flowed like a movie in my head, and it was a really quick read. Now I think about it, that did make it a really good beach read because it was a little bit on the lighter side when it came to horror. All right, so last but not least, we have Kill River by Cameron Robique, and this is set in the 80s, and here you're following Cindy, Stacy, Brad, and Zach. They're at Camp Kickawa, I believe is what it's called. And they end up, none of them really want to be there. Cindy has just met the other three. She's kind of the girl that always has the headphones in her ear. She's not really that social anymore. She listens to the Go-Go's a lot, so you get a lot of 80s music vibes, which I like. But she befriends Stacy, Brad, and Zach, who already knew each other. They've been going to that camp for years, but they've caused some trouble in the past, so they're kind of on thin ice. Brad is kind of the leader of that. Zach kind of follows him. They're best friends, and Stacy and Brad are boyfriend and girlfriend. And these kids are only like 13 years old. But they end up causing trouble again and get in trouble to the point where they feel like they just want to run away. They don't want to be there anymore. And that's not a spoiler, that's on the back. So when they head up to the river is supposed to lead to a highway so they get hitchhike and go home, but they get lost. And they end up finding an abandoned water park that isn't so abandoned because there is a slasher killer there. So that's when camp doesn't become so fun anymore. First like 80 pages, you're kind of getting the feel for summer camp. So for those of you who have been to summer camp, it's very nostalgic. Like I went to summer camp like all the time. But unlike them, I enjoyed it. I wanted to go. I only had one bad experience at summer camp. But I loved archery. That was my favorite. And I made a dream catcher. I liked canoeing. I didn't really love the swimming because I'm not a great swimmer. I'm not that strong. I actually almost drowned one time. My sister saved my life. Thanks, Bree. Love you. But I loved camp. So it gave me like very nostalgic feelings. The older kids, some of them thought the camp was lame. My parents made me come. And I remember every year there was always like someone in my bunk who got homesick and would start crying, and the counselors would do everything to try to get them to stay, but some of them ended up going home because they missed their parents so much. But I got to go hiking in the mountains. I went to one in the mountains, and I got to go like hiking in the mountains, like old-fashioned style. That was fun. But yeah, I wasn't one to get homesick. I actually went to a camp like 4 hours away. That was the one in the mountains. But anyways, so I loved that's like I said, like the first 80 pages. So the kids are getting to know each other. They're bonding. You get really attached to them. So, and that's always sad in horror when you get attached to the characters because you know they're not all gonna make it. But yeah, the bad guy was... Oh yeah, if you're looking for a perfect summer read, like it says, this 80s slasher horror at its best. Like it really is, and it's definitely... It makes you want to go to a water park. Even if you're not a great swimmer, like I want to go to a water park right now and just hopefully I won't, you know, die by drowning or die by serial killer. All right, that's it for my wrap up. Thanks for hanging out at the beach with Steve and I. I think this month The Tent was probably my favorite. Close second is Kill River. What about you, Steve? What was your favorite book? He said Kill River, but he said Kill River because he thinks he's related to the skeleton. Anytime he sees a skeleton, he thinks they're cousins. That's not how that works, sweetie. Drink your rum. I'll see y'all next time.